Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships and toxic situations of all kinds, with my hope that what you learn on this channel will help you from getting into these relationships, may stop you from staying in them too long, or learning how to set boundaries, and also learning to heal from them, or just simply understanding them. If you're new to this channel, please do subscribe and join us. And if you want to be told every day when we put out a new video, just hit that notification bell. We've been doing a new series on different types of narcissistic relationships. This goes beyond the whole grandiose and vulnerable, because that really talks about the narcissistic person themselves. These relationships have different looks to them. Today, we're going to be talking about the good-looking relationship. I think understanding that these narcissistic relationships look different ways can really help people sort of say, this is why mine doesn't look like my sister's or my friends. This ongoing series sort of kind of calls out, describes these different kinds of narcissistic relationships. And today we're going to be talking about a specific kind of narcissistic relationship called the good-looking relationship. Now, any narcissistic relationship can be good-looking. Most often we're using it to refer to a romantic relationship between partners or marriage or something. But it can also refer to what you had with parents and family, friends, or even work. Now, these are the relationships that look good. They can look really good. It may literally look good, like everyone in the relationship's really attractive, smiling big in the well-posed pictures in front of sunsets and oceans and tourist sites and people wearing the same thing. These relationships can often be quite confusing for the people in them because they look so good to the world, and so the assumption by everyone, even sometimes for the people in them, is everyone must be happy in this, right? Children who grow up in the good-looking narcissistic relationship families will often report that feelings were secondary to ensuring that the picture or the image looked good, and that everyone was meant to go along and get along. It was far more important that they were dressed correctly and smiling right and doing the right things and seen with the right people than it was to address feelings, whether they as the children had any interest in what was happening in front of them, or even what their children's interests were or their preferences were. As long as everything looked good, all those feelings and things don't matter. Childhood in these good-looking sorts of families could be a performance of sorts, and children who grow up in these kinds of systems will report that they felt more like players in a story and ultimately recognized that as long as they did what the narcissistic parent wanted them to do and looked the way they wanted them to look, all was well, and that they were basically just narcissistic supply. Children who were able to fit into what the narcissistic parent in the good-looking system wanted would typically be rewarded somehow, but scapegoats or kids who didn't or couldn't do what the narcissistic parent wanted or look the way the narcissistic parent wanted would often suffer. Now, for those in these good-looking relationships, there is lots of cognitive dissonance. The relationship really does look good, and so people may feel compelled to make it work. And even if the non-narcissistic member of the relationship cared and enjoyed how the relationship looked to the world, they would still struggle with the lack of empathy and the superficiality and the admiration seeking and the arrogance and the manipulation and the gaslighting and the invalidation of it all. The good-lookingness, as it were, of the relationship would mean that a person in this relationship would want to fight for it, fight for that narrative, want those pictures and the feelings that they wanted behind those pictures to be real. And so then there would be the justifications, and on top of the justifications would be fear. Oh gosh, they're really attractive, so if I try to end this relationship, they're going to find someone new in a second. And then it's assumed that the next person is going to get this good-looking relationship, right? The enablers don't help either. The enablers, may keep pointing out how good your life is. Look at your nice house, or look at your nice lifestyle, look at your nice stuff, or just look how good y'all look. So you may not even feel able to share your feelings about how soul-sucking the relationship is, and to keep getting reminded of how good it looks can really multiply that dissonance and the justifications. And the world at large enables these relationships. Folks on social media may ooh and ah over your life. The world at large may tell you that you made it, that you're a success because of how good your life looks. And it can feel very lonely because you can believe that if you complain or you want things to be different, that somehow you are ungrateful or entitled because, after all, this relationship just looks so good. Now, the reason I think so much of the world does not understand narcissism is because more than a few of these relationships fall into the good-looking bucket. We judge relationships, unfortunately, from a very superficial place, and some people are better at branding and documenting their relationships than others. This good-looking relationship is a tricky relationship type because people in these relationships often doubt themselves because it does look so good. They are actually often quite physically attracted to their partners because they are attractive, and the two of you look good together. And that really can fuel the rationalizations. And the world thinks you must be doing fine because you look good in your relationship, which can mean enabling and people telling you that you are asking for too much when you have such a good thing. Ah, what are you asking for? More empathy. You look great together, right? So I have found that helping people walk out of good-looking narcissistic relationships is a real struggle. People really do get stuck in how it looks. This can sometimes be an artifact of childhood, when they were taught that how things look matters above all else, or because these relationships can feel like a very attractive fairy tale that over time, this thing may look like a fairy tale in pictures, but in actuality, it's a bit of a horror story. The trauma bond around all of this is quite profound. The wanting it to work, the wanting to be chosen by the beautiful person, the wanting to be in the magical narrative, and the collusion of the world can really complicate it. Most people really need to crash out, get to that rock bottom on these relationships, and that can look like infidelity, even physical abuse, before they will step away from them. And the infidelity, unfortunately, just feeds the narrative of like, oh, great, now someone else just got my good-looking relationship, which can make hoovering far more dangerous if that good-looking narcissist comes back around because you want that back. The attractive narcissist is one of the most dangerous ones of all because, let's face it, beauty is compelling. I am always so proud of survivors who can get to the point where they say, I don't care how good this person looks or how good our life looks. I am done. And they're able to see through all that attractiveness. But unfortunately, in these photogenic relationships, it takes a really long time. If the good-lookingness is around your family of origin, so it may not be your intimate relationship or your romantic relationship, but your family of origin, there can be this real image of, look at us, we go on these great vacations together and we have these family reunions and we look so good, and it really fuels that sense of you're thinking, oh my gosh, I know what these people in this family are really about. But as a child, you really almost felt like almost culty and how like important it was for all of you to look good together, and that still matters in adulthood. And in that case, though, because things are so good looking, there can be a real pressure that nothing be wrong. So if you start rolling up and saying, hey, everybody, this family system's really toxic, well, toxic isn't very attractive, is it? And there can be a real ostracizing of the person, often a truth teller, who rolls up and says, this, folks, is not healthy. But in good-looking family systems, they don't want to hear it. And you might even see this in a workplace. It's interesting to think of a good-looking narcissistic workplace, but that can often be a high-status sort of business or a business that's associated with sort of lots of power and lots of flash and razzle-dazzle. And that it may look really cool to work there. Great rooms to have a break in and take a nap in, and candy dispensers or whatever it looks like, or great perks. And everyone just looks real happy. But then in a back room somewhere or in a conference room, there's a really narcissistic manager throwing a laptop, or people screaming at each other, or people being humiliated or debased or invalidated or worse, or harassed. That on the face of it, people are like, I want to work there. That just seems like the place to work. It's good looking, so it can be hard to break ranks thinking like, well, everyone wants to work here, and I think it's toxic and want to get out. It can be really hard for a person who feels like maybe it's something about me because everyone else seems to want to work here. Remember, as is often the case, and good-looking relationships are a great example of this, sometimes the emperor is not wearing any clothes, and it takes a courageous person to call that out. Thanks again.